I'm just flesh and bone, but more importantly, I'm a soul. And that soul is accountable to one being. I mean, I've had an unbelievably blessed life. Been doing this now, it'll be 12 years on June 5th.
Such a young man to do it.
So young.
Yeah, so praise God. I mean, I've been all across the world. I've met with world leaders. I've flown in Air Force One, got to know a president. I have an amazing family, the podcast, Turning Point USA, all that stuff. And so you experience that and you're like, what actually matters? What matters is your relationship with the divine, your relationship with your family, your kids, and maybe a close collection of friends, and your relationship with the truth.
So I'm not going to get into the politics of this and the conspiracy theories of this, but I think it is worth spending a couple of minutes around Charlie Kirk. I mean, Charlie Kirk was an absolute great man. He was a giant. He was a giant in many respects. He was larger than life. He had amazing energy. I got the privilege of meeting him a few times. Really, it was a figure that was like full of charisma and energy, and absolutely larger than life in every way, even in the physical way. He was amazing. He was an absolute family man, and I guess he absolutely loved what he did, even to the last day. You can see the absolute energy that this man had and the charisma that he had. And I guess he was also an absolute family man. And one thing you'll see is that he was a master debater and someone who was constantly seeking the truth and seeking to show other people the truth. I mean, I picked up one or two of the debates that he did, and
as a man,
regardless of
and
your
now
views,
I'm a woman.
Okay, no, but you don't become a woman just because you dress like a woman. So let me ask you a question. If I wear a disguise or a costume, do I become that thing? For example, if I dress with a sombrero and start talking with a Mexican accent, do I then become that culture?
No, because that's different race.
Okay,
That's
but then wait, why? How is it different? Because you're saying that if you dress a certain way and you present a certain way, you can be as you think you are. Why can't I also just choose what culture I am?
Because you're born within a culture. You're born with.
But you were born as a man. So what is a woman?
What is a woman is whatever you want to be.
So anyone can be a woman?
Yeah.
Do you get a period?
No. Well, actually, yes. So, no.
Wow.
I mean, he was a master debater. He was always seeking the truth. And actually, he was a Bitcoiner. He was someone that loved freedom and freedom of money and freedom of Bitcoin. This was an interview that I managed to find.
Big fan of Bitcoin.
Should the U.S. do a Bitcoin reserve?
Absolutely, yes. Yes, the United States should have a strategic Bitcoin reserve.
And who should pay for the Bitcoin reserve?
That's a good question. Hopefully, some of the tariff money could potentially do that. The reason why I think we should have a strategic Bitcoin reserve, I know you guys had Michael Saylor on your show, and I think he's onto something. There is something called like the mass adoption theory, which is over a period of time, like the English language, US dollar, things just catch on and they're just kind of volitional and there's no stopping it. I think Bitcoin is that. You got to watch out though. Quantum computing could potentially crack.
So he was a Bitcoiner, and I guess he knew a lot about Bitcoin. And actually, in a way, he kind of knew that this could actually happen to him. I mean, I don't know if you guys have listened to this, but he kind of knew this could happen to him.
I go around universities and have challenging conversations, and because that's what is so important to our country, is to find our disagreements respectfully, because when people stop talking, that's when violence happens.
I've never seen someone do this.
Well, it's a growing trend because people like me are facing violence, assault, the left. Yes, the campus Antifa. I've been stormed out of restaurants. I've been assaulted publicly, multiple death threats.
Okay, so what's your goal in all this?
There's more people that agree with me.
So, I mean, he probably knew that there were a lot of risks, and he did have a security detail, and he was assaulted a lot. And he knew that, today in the United States, if you're part of the far right, then you do actually get that risk. And he was asked basically, how do you want to be remembered?
How do you want to be remembered?
This is how
If
he
I
replied.
die?
Everything just goes away. How would you, if you could be associated with one thing, how would you want to be remembered?
I want to be remembered for courage for my faith. That would be the most important thing. The most important thing is my faith in my life.
How do you want?
I mean, and I think he is remembered as someone who had courage for his faith. For me, the part that I'm the most, concerned, surprised about is like, this was in a public rally. And if you think about like where Trump was almost assassinated, also in a public rally. And it just shows that that's what's happening now in many places, in the United States and in many places, is that you're not even safe in a country where you're supposed to have the ultimate freedom in a public rally. And that's a very, 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 very scary place to be. Anyway, I don't want to get into the politics of it all. I don't want to get into the conspiracy theories of it all. I do send love to the family. I mean, he's got 2 beautiful girls, and he's got a beautiful wife, or 2 beautiful kids, and he's got a beautiful wife. And I just, I mean, he was 31 years old. He had his whole life ahead of him. And I think just maybe before we start the show today, just a quick moment silence for a quick moment just to remember Charlie Kirk and everything that he did. What a great guy. All right, I think on that note, maybe we can start the show and get on with what we were going to do anyway. Yeah, what a day, what a day. Anyway, what a day indeed. We got the CPI numbers actually came out exactly as expected. Now what the market's basically saying is, look, we've got a license to basically start running. And the one indicator that you can actually see that in is you can see that in the alt season indicator, because actually this indicator has now gone over 75. It's now on 78. And that means that officially, the indicator is indicating that we're in alt season, the season where the altcoins actually outperform Bitcoin. Now, the big question is, how long will this actually last? And the answer is that if a certain thing happens, one certain thing lands up happening, then alt season can last for 6 weeks or maybe even a little bit longer. But if it doesn't trigger, then it's not going to happen. So I want to show you what that indicator is. I want to show you what that one little indicator is, that if that indicator triggers, we're going to get 6 weeks of fun in the altcoin markets, and we can get one of those really serious altcoin runs. And if it doesn't happen, then we're just going to we're going to get Bitcoin outperforming the alts, and we're going to get the altcoins going down again. I'm going to show you that indicator. I'm going to show you how long I expect this alt season to run, and we're going to dig into what actually happens next when it comes to rate cuts. So big show today. Let's get going, guys. You know, I must say that without wanting to get into the politics and the pro-America and without the Americanisms, it just, you know, one thing, for those of you who don't know, there was a period in my life where I actually moved to live in the United States. And the one reason why I actually didn't enjoy living in the United States was because when I was in the US, the one thing that, I mean, I love democracy, and I actually tweeted about this, and I said, look, you know, I'm obviously a big fan of democracy, and I don't actually really see a way that's better than democracy, right? But the problem with the American democratic system, because you have a very strong left and a very strong right, and they're kind of divided down the middle, what you get is you always get the politicians competing and trying to win votes, because votes give them power. And when the politicians compete and try and get votes, they do this by demonizing the other side. So you constantly, in the United States, it almost feels like there's a race every 4 years, but the outcome happens every 4 years. And during the 4 years, they race to see who's going to win the next election or the next prize. And the way that they campaign is by knocking your competitor. The more you demonize your competitor, the more you demonize your opposition, the more you make them look like evil people, the better. What they don't realize that they're actually doing is that they are taking a bunch of people who are actually easily manipulated and quite extreme, and they're radicalizing them against the other side. And so, you know, I think the one thing that you'll agree with me is that the US is constantly at battle between the left and the right. Even when you go to like events, dinners, stuff like that, the US is always at battle. It's always the left versus the right. If it's a right-leaning school, the left don't go there. If it's a left-leaning area, the right people don't live there. And this constant campaigning actually creates a lot of friction. And I'm you know, like, we remember how bad Biden called Trump and all the names that Biden called Trump. And I'm sure Trump's called Biden a whole lot of names. But I think what these guys don't realize is the damage that they're doing. And someone here says that's modern politics, not only in the United States. It's not true. It's democracy. It's democracy. And the advantages and disadvantages. The advantages are obviously clear. You get freedom. You get to vote for whoever you want. The majority rules, etc., etc. But the downside is what I just mentioned. Also, the downside is that every 4 years, you land up changing policies, or you can land up changing policies. So, if you get one, you get the left in for 4 years, and then you get the right in for 4 years, which is the type of situation that we're getting through now. And you kind of look at how far behind the United States fell in blockchain, and now they're playing catch up. So yes, look, as I said in my tweet, I don't have a better system. It's not like I'm saying I know better, or Africa's better, or whatever else. I'm just saying that it has its issues. And unfortunately, you got to take the good with the bad. Although, like, I do see what's happened in Dubai in like the last couple of years, and they don't have democracy. They have one ruler, and he's the ultimate ruler, and they don't have as much freedom, but they are making progress a lot quicker. I'm not saying it's a better system. I'm saying it's a different system, and every system must be done with its merits. All right, let's get into the inflation numbers. And guys, and this is not our normal kind of show. If you are here, consider smashing the like button. I see already 500 people smashed the like button. Thank you, guys. Really, really does help our distribution. I've got a big show for you guys today. We're not going to talk about Charlie. We're not going to talk about the politics. I think that's for another show. We are going to talk about the alts, and we are going to talk about the inflation numbers. So we got the inflation numbers, as you can see over here. So the inflation number is exactly what we expected. We expected 2.9% from CPI. We got 2.9% from CPI, which means that now we've had both indicators. We've had CPI, which came in on expectations. We've had PPI that came in on expectations. We expected CPI to go slightly up. The reason why we expected CPI to go slightly up was because if you remember the last PPI reading, it was slightly higher. That was tariff related. That has to flow through to consumers. It did flow through consumers. It raised the CPI to 2.9%. I would imagine the next CPI actually goes down, because that transitory inflation that came in from the tariffs is actually gonna get reduced. And as I said in my tweet this morning, I said, look, the CPI reading doesn't actually matter. Even if we got a 3% or 3.1%, it doesn't matter, because the rate cuts are already confirmed. Because what the PPI showed us was that little blip, or that little jump in inflation, was actually very transitory. And now that there's no more issue around tariffs and stuff like that, we're starting to go back down again. And so now, basically, if we look at the indicators over here, we see that the indicators are showing us that there's going to be there's a 90% chance that we're getting a single rate cut. And there's a 9.2% chance that we're getting a double rate cut, a 50 basis point rate cut. As I said yesterday, and I'm going to stick to my view here, I believe that as we get closer and closer and closer to the rate cut, this goes higher. I'm not sure we're going to get a double rate cut unless we get some kind of real bomb in data that drops on us. But otherwise, safe to assume that in the last quarter of this year, the Fed's first FOMC meeting, which happens next week, Wednesday, in the last quarter of the year, we've got 17th of September, then we've got 29th of October, then we've got 10th of December, and then that's the end of it. I believe that we could see at least 2 or 3 rate cuts. The probabilities here are leaning towards 1 rate cut, 2 rate cuts, 3 rate cuts this year. So right now, probability is leaning towards 3 rate cuts. I guess you could put your money on 2 rate cuts in the last quarter of the year. The interesting part about the rate cuts in the last quarter of the year is exactly what Tom Lee said when he went onto CNBC. And he said, look, it's only basically happened twice before, and I want to show you what's basically happened in those twice before.
Hey, Tom, Bitcoin, before we let you go, tell us what you think. We're at about $111,000. The upside, the downside from here?
Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies like Ethereum are super sensitive to monetary policy. So I think that September 17th is an important catalyst. Crypto typically does really well in the fourth quarter. So I think Bitcoin can easily get to 200,000 before year end. I know it's a big move. It's almost a double, but that's also going to be
a double from here. Let's just hold on. Let's just take a quick pause. A double from here. So everybody's listening to this. We're at $111,000, and you think by Christmas time, effectively, we could be at 200,000?
That's right. One of the reasons Bitcoin stalled this year is the Fed's been on pause for 9 months. That pause all year, if you look at an easing cycle, that's only happened 2 other times, in 1998 and 2024, where the Fed began to resume cuts in the fourth quarter in September. Equities do really well. As you know, crypto is beta to equity. So I think it's going to be a very strong fourth quarter. Small caps should also rally, like IWM, but that also is really bullish for Ethereum, which is highly linked to small caps.
I think we need to get. I think we need to get Tom Lee on our show. I'm going to speak to our PR agent to actually get Tom Lee on our show. But what he's basically saying is, he's saying, look, it's never happened before, or it's happened twice before, and in both times that this happened, which was 1998, there was obviously no Bitcoin in 1998. You can see a pattern. The pattern is that the S&P ran for the next 18 months. It ran up 68%. But what ran even more was the small caps. And in this case, they are depicted by the Russell 2000. The Russell 2000 almost 2x outperformed the S&P 500 in the period of rate cuts, or when the rate cut started. The second time that this happened was in 2024. And I know that most of us that are actually watching the show were here in 2024. And you remember what happened in 2024. For those of you that have short memory syndrome, or have just smoked too much weed and have lost your short-term memory, I want to quickly just go back to December. That is December. That's what happened in December 2024. So that's, and I mean, just to give an idea, that's like the total 3 market doubled in that very short period, when we got a taste, a slither, just a sample of what can happen when we actually get when we actually get the rate cut. So it looks like we're lining up to repeat that. So you can see here, Bitcoin had a killer quarter. The quarter 4 of 2024 rate cut quarter in 2024 was very, very, very good for Bitcoin. Less good for ETH, but ETH was very, very much out of season. I would imagine that this time it's actually flipped, and this time we're going to get a very strong Q4 for ETH, and maybe slightly less of a Q4 for Bitcoin. The other thing that we actually have on our side here is another chart, and that's this chart over here. You have the global money supply, chart, which rose, get this, 9.3% year on year in July to $140 trillion of money supply. Now, the $140 trillion is a big number, but the record growth, 9.3% year on year on the money supply. Now remember, this metric covers 169 territories, representing 99% of global GDP. Since the beginning of the year, money supply in US dollars has jumped by $10 trillion. World money supply has risen by a massive $40 trillion since the 2020 pandemic. And so what you can see is that the money supply is very, very, very much on our side. The money supply chart is starting to grow exponentially. And what we know about Bitcoin and gold, when you go to the money supply chart, is that number one, they're very, very, very highly correlated. You can see that over here with a slight lag. So if you look here, that is the lag that brought back this thing over here. And now it's pretty much up only with a big blow off top over here, right? You can see that like at some point here, we're going to get a blow off top and then some kind of small correction before we actually continue going back up. And so this is very, very, very good for Bitcoin and gold. But there's another indicator that I want to show you about the last quarter of the year. The other indicator is the Bitcoin versus gold. So if you look at this chart over here, which is Bitcoin versus gold, it's been obviously on an upward trajectory, on an upward trend. And it's now just touching this upward trend, and it's about to break out of, or it can break out of this flag if it recovers out of here. Why am I comparing Bitcoin to gold? Because how you can imagine this is you can say, look, Bitcoin is gold's riskier younger brother, right? So you're almost saying like, look, there's gold, established, old, part of the establishment. And then you've got Bitcoin, which is new gold. It's like the cheeky younger brother. And just like people move from Bitcoin to altcoins, or from the S&P to the Russell 2000, when you get global liquidity, the gold bugs basically say, hold on a second, we like gold, but we're looking for something that's like a better gold, right? Like we're looking for a better gold. And they'll say, okay, look, we've got our returns from gold. We've got 90% of our portfolio into gold, but maybe we should put a little bit into gold's younger brother, which is Bitcoin. And that to me is what's going to change this chart. So the kind of thing that you have to think about is that when you get into the loosening cycle, you pretty much get this trend in all the assets. Riskier assets outperform not risky assets. When that happens, I guess that Bitcoin will start outperforming gold. And that's usually when we get some kind of blow off top. I'm not expecting a blow off top in the same sense of the word that we've got a blow off top, that we get a blow off top. The one thing that I must warn you about, though, is that the market is very much anticipating the rate cuts next week, right? It's pretty much like a done deal in markets, right? And when a market is so anticipatory of something, when the market's all factored in the fact everyone's thinking about the same thing, generally that can become a sell the news event. And so I wouldn't be surprised if just after the FOMC next week, which is next week, Wednesday, I wouldn't be surprised if after the FOMC we get a slight dip, a slight correction. And that's because everyone just sells the news of the rate cuts that have been so highly anticipated. I'm not sure if it's going to happen. And obviously my thesis remains that we're going to go violently up into the last part of the year. However, just be careful towards the FOMC next week, because these things can, when the whole market's waiting for a certain event, you can get a deleveraging at that specific event, right? So you can get a deleveraging at that specific event. And that leads me to my next indicator, right? Or the next thing that I want to speak about, which is specifically around the altcoins, right? So as I said to you, altcoins, I actually want to just check something here. So the altcoins specifically doing like quite well. In fact, what you can see is that the Bitcoin dominance very much falling off a cliff here. So you can see the Bitcoin dominance very, very, very much finally falling onto a cliff, kind of representing or kind of highlighting exactly what the data is telling us around money supply and loosening money supply and stuff like that. And the alt season index, as I mentioned to you earlier, just went up to 78. Now, this indicator basically indicates to us when we are already in alt season. I've always said to you guys, I don't really use this indicator, or I do, but I use it differently to everybody else. Most people wait for it to be alt season. I wait for there to be a 30-point upward move, and I did make a show about this, and I said this was the point where I actually said, okay, it's time to get in, because there was a 30-point upward move here. And if you did that, you actually caught all the moves. Now you're counting on getting a couple of weeks of euphoria. And when I say a couple of weeks of euphoria, generally there's a certain trigger. And if this trigger actually happens, then we get a real alt season, and that could last a couple of weeks. But if not, then it's not going to happen. So the question is, what is that trigger that needs to happen for this alt season to actually remain here and to last a couple of weeks versus to get some kind of rejection? And so when we analyzed the data, we realized that we took all the data around all the different times that the alt season indicator actually broke that 75. And basically, you can do it yourself. You can just go to the indicator. You can zoom in like that. And what you realize is that this indicator actually broke 75 12 times in its history. So 12 times in the history, this altcoin indicator, this altcoin index has broken the 75 level, the 75 level, the 75 whatever level. Now, 6 of those 12 times, the indicator continued running for a long time, and 6 of those it actually rejected before a week. And so what we realize here is that the indicator can spike up and get rejected. And if it doesn't, and if it lasts over 75 for a week, that is actually the beginning of what is a real alt season, or a much longer alt season. So why am I bringing this up today? Because remember I said to you that there could be a sell the news event when we actually get the Fed actually announcing the interest rate drops next week, right? Because it's not only about whether or not they're going to cut interest rates. There's going to be a dot plot. The dot plot's going to come out. Maybe the dot plot is going to be disappointing. Maybe it's not going to be disappointing. I do believe the dot plot actually won't be disappointing. Why? Because the jobs numbers were revised down. That's why. So we need to see whether this altcoin index gets rejected after a week or doesn't get rejected after a week. If we stay above 75 for over a week, as we have done in 6 of the previous 12 times that this indicator has broken 75, then we need to look at the data of what we can actually expect. And that's really what we analyzed today. And by the way, if you're enjoying this, please smash the like button. Also, maybe if you can, subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. So let's look at this. So as we said, half of the breakouts are actually fake outs. Out of the 12 historical breaks, only 6 become a real alt season, right? So what is the metric that tell us whether it's a real alt season or not? It's that 1 week. It's that 1 week mark. That 1 week mark tells us that whether if we can stay there for over a week, then generally what happens is we land up being in that period for about between 6 and 7 weeks. So if we survive over a week, we on average and on the median, on the average, we will land up being there for about 6 to 7 weeks, which is, you can call it like roughly 50 days. So roughly 50 days of an altcoin season, which would take us to right through until the end of October. That correlates with the traditional cycle, the people that believe in the traditional cycle, who believe that this cycle will be the same as every other cycle. If you believe that narrative, then this lines up perfectly. If we stay above the altcoin index for over 75 for over a week, then we could get 6 to 7 weeks of a real alt season. And maybe that could take us to be the blow off top, because maybe that, which by the way is with a 60-day lag, so that could be the blow off top. Possible. Then we could get a correction, as you can see over here, like it happened over here, and it could happen over here. So I did make a video actually on our other channel. I know a lot of you guys actually spoke about it. I'll quickly show you the video, which is over here. Crypto Insider. So if you haven't watched the video, you should probably go and watch this video over here. It's called "Why is this the longest crypto bull run in history?" That's my theory about why this cycle actually could be different. But there's no guarantees, and there is a chance that we'll follow the normal cycle, because if we do remain above 75 over here for over a week, and it lasts for the typical 6 to 7 weeks that we get in the normal alt season, then that could lead us to the blow off top, and that could pretty much end the cycle. I don't believe that, but worth talking about. The longest cycle we've ever had is 12.5 weeks, and that was in 2021. That was the Solana, Luna, and AVAX cycle. And then the shortest one where we've had is, shortest ones we've had have been mini runs. You can kind of see it much better on the chart. So you can look at the others chart, and you can look at the total 3 chart, and you can say, look, of the 6 times that the altcoin season indicator remained above 75 for more than 1 week, 1, 2, 3, 4 went up. 3 of those went up absolutely aggressively. Funny enough, there were twice that the indicator went up and the market actually went down. And what that means is that the altcoins went down less than Bitcoin actually went down. I remember this. This was the end of the 2021 bull market, right? Oh, sorry, the 2017 bull market, where first Bitcoin crashed and the alts actually stayed up. But that was a very, very, very anomalous. I don't think we're going to get a thing there. So what are we looking at? We're looking to see if this indicator remains over 75 for over a week. If it does, then we have to be careful that doesn't leave us with the blow off top with 6 weeks towards the end of the cycle. If it does, you can expect some massive returns, 75 here, 98% here, 80% here. And just to give an idea, for those of you who were here in 2024, I'm sure we were all here in 2024, but that's the fun and games that you could have in a cycle that's actually a cutting cycle. And so that's very, very, very much what we're looking for. The other charts obviously all align with this. So, you've got the total 3 chart over here. That total 3 chart this is the daily, has a massive, massive, massive cup and handle. I mean, when that breaks, then, we go up to the next level. So this chart supports that same thesis. Also, I mean, you can look at it as a cup and handle, but you can also look at it as a bit of a flag over here. And it looks like we are going to break out of this big flag, and that's going to be amazing. And also, if you look at the ETH BTC ratio, it looks like, and that's like one of the old indicators for old season. It broke out, and now it's turned support into or resistance back into support. So that's pretty much the thesis. If we want to have a long alt season, we need to stay above where we're at just for 1 week. If we can survive just for 1 week, well, that could open up a whole can of worms. I think it's going to be absolutely amazing. I am cautioning you that we may actually reject. You know what? If we rejected, wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, because then we could get a longer cycle. And right now, to be honest, I want a longer cycle. I'm here for a long time, not for a good time, you know? You know, like it's like when you go to Thailand and the lady asks you, are you here for a long time or good time? That means, do you want a 90-minute massage, or do you just want to come in and get the business done and then you can leave? So that's like the basic translation. Did you know that? When you go to Thailand, it says, are you here for a long time or good time? You got to be like, long time is like a 90-minute back, shoulders, happy ending. And then good time is like, look, just forget about the massage and just go, love you long time. Love you long time. You should have heard that. Come on, hardest, bro. You've never heard like, love you long time.
I've heard the saying.
Now you know where it comes from. Now you know where it comes from. I also saw this today, and I'm actually very keen to see what actually lands up happening here. So Avalanche looking to raise $1 billion for 2 crypto treasury companies. I'd be very, very, very keen to see if they can raise $1 billion. Nothing against Avalanche, but like I just don't see how Wall Street gets excited about Avalanche, because there's not much activity on the chain. The only thing, to be honest, that I do like about Avalanche, or the main thing that I like about Avalanche, and again, no disrespect to the team. I think they're a great team. I think they're very smart, but I'm just looking at adoption. The main thing that I like is the black hole DEX, which is actually Elio's DEX and the whole DEX model. Couple of other things. So let's talk about a couple of other things before we say goodbye to each other today, because there's a couple of things. Couple of other things. So let's talk about. I'm hearing. Tell Johnny to put in the BTCC, because they are continuing with their special for us. They've told us they're going to extend it for another 24 hours. We'll talk about that in a second. Guys, who's coming to Singapore? Token 2049 happening in Singapore. If you want to, I'm going to be there. Everybody's going to be there. The whole of Banter is going to be there. It's probably the biggest crypto gathering event in the world. If you haven't been to a conference and you want to go to a conference, this is the one to go to. It's the biggest. It's the best. Everybody's there. There's 1,000 side events. If you want to come and you want to buy a ticket, there's a 15% coupon code over here. Just use the coupon code CryptoBanter15. Now listen up here. Banter is having a party. We always have a party at these conferences. We're having our Banter party. There are 2 ways to get into the party. The one way is you can sign up to front runners. You can tell Johnny to put the front runners link here. It would be very nice if he did that. The other thing that you can do is you can sign up and buy a ticket here, and we'll select 10 people or 15 people from this, for people who buy tickets, and invite them to the Banter party. Full transparency, guys, we get nothing when we sell you these tickets. If you want to come, we've got a good discount for you guys. We get nothing out of it. Would be cool to see you guys there. Would be cool to party with you guys there. I mean, Banter, as you know, is much more of a community, and it would just be very cool to have you guys there. Also, another thing, you know that exchange tokens have been running, and I specifically have been looking at Dell. I might see you there if you go. And I see Bitcoin price is running 114,600. Very cool. I see that Mantle is actually running. Mantle is the Bybit token, and that reminds me of, you got to keep looking at the exchange tokens, because the exchange tokens are the ultimate winners in the cycle. Now, you know that I've been talking about an exchange, or exchange token called Vision, VSN. This is the exchange token of an exchange in Europe called Bitpanda. And the reason why I talk about it is because 2 things have happened. The first thing is, just look at the chart. Okay, so this is like a classic chart where you've just had a breakout. Second thing is, I know that this is listing on a whole lot of other exchanges tomorrow. So it's the exchange token listing on a whole lot of other exchange tokens. So I think that you might want to have a look at that token. Keep an eye on it. Do you think Johnny's put the BTCC? Otherwise we're going to call Johnny into this office, and he's the guy's quite fast. So look, guys, very simply, this is the last day you can do this, by the way. If you want to get the craziest deposit bonus in the whole industry, you deposit money and they give you 10% of whatever you deposited back. Crazy. And then you can just trade with that. There's a link below here. You open an account. It's a non-KYC account, and they top you up by 10%. If you want to know how to claim the bonus, there is a video right here which literally walks you through step by step how to claim your bonus. Okay, literally step by step. So just go and do it. It's amazing. It's amazing. Yeah. So let me know if you're going to come with us to Singapore. Also tomorrow we have a Banter, and then on the weekend remember we said on the weekend we're going to redo all of our bots. We're going to have a bot workshop. I'll let you know what time that. Do you prefer Saturday or Sunday, guys? I think I'll let you know. I'll let you know if we do Saturday or Sunday. All right, kids. I'll see you guys again Tomorrow, big banter. Until then, trade well, my friends.